Am I the a-hole for telling my dad and his wife their marriage wasn't a deal my siblings and I signed up for? My dad married his wife 5 years ago. I, 16 female, was 11, my brother was 14, and my sister was 15. His wife had an 8 and 6-year-old at the time, who are now 11 and 13. The marriage was tough on my siblings and me. Our dad's wife came in day one of living together and made things much more strict, with our dad's backing obviously, but she was always on us. Always picking apart the stuff we did. We'd always had chores, but usually my brother and I woke up early and did ours before school, while my sister did hers in the hour she was home without anyone else. That was stopped, and we were told all kids had to do chores together, so the big kids could help the little ones. My sister said it wasn't our job to help her kids. Dad's wife said they were our siblings now, which my sister and brother loudly declared they were not, and it became a fight. We went from being able to eat out with friends after school or at friends' houses to needing to be home for family dinners. We complained to our dad, but he said it was important to his wife that we all come together. Stuff like that was common, and she and my brother and sister fought a lot because my siblings did not treat her kids even close to how they treated me, and it bothered her. With me, it was less of a fight because I was the baby of our sibling group, and I think she thought I would eventually take the role over. When I didn't, and my siblings made no effort to be her kids' big siblings, she and my dad dragged me to family therapy, and we have been going for a while now. What sparked the interest in therapy was my sister ended up moving into a place, and she had a room just for me there, and another just for my brother, and no special space for our step-siblings. So anyway, therapy has been ongoing for months now. And it's basically been a lot of my dad and his wife talking and asking why I don't call her stepmom or her kid siblings. And then the therapist finally decided to take control recently and start going into more stuff. And he asked why it bothered them so much that we weren't super close, and my dad's wife said her kids came as part of the package deal, and we all knew the deal when they got married. I jumped in and said my siblings and I never signed up for their marriage, said we were part of no deal, and it's not fair to hold us to any deal made because we didn't make it. My dad blew up on me in the session, and the therapist was trying to defuse the situation. The last 4 sessions, my dad and his wife have dominated the sessions over what I said. They also put me under house arrest for being rude and selfish for saying what I did. It pisses me off, but part of me wonders if I was wrong to say it. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Tell the therapist that you've been grounded for sharing your feelings in a therapy session. I don't think there's much he can do at this point. Is basically just another body in the room during these sessions when my dad and his wife dominate. It's literally his job to handle this. Could you contact him outside of the sessions, or do you feel unsafe doing that? Also, are her kids there, or just you? Just me. It is his job, but, yeah, I could call. Your parents are being dishonest about the therapy. They wanted to fix you, instead of learning what is going wrong with the family dynamic. Tell the therapist you're being punished for things you say in therapy. Not the a-hole. Move in with your sister if you can. They will never change. They are literally forcing you to therapy to fix the mess they made. They will always blame you guys. If I were Opie, I'd do it. I'd call the police non-emergency and speak with an officer and say, I'm 16 and moving in with my sister. My dad might throw a fit, and I know legally you guys can't do anything since it's a civil matter. I just wanted to get an idea what would happen if he does call you guys so I can be prepared. The few times I've had to preemptively call, they've even given me a way to teach the notes for calls so I could tell the officer to check the notes, and then evening always goes my way. Not the a-hole. To hold you in contempt for what was said during therapy, where you're supposed to feel safe and heard, is disgusting parenting. You are absolutely right. You guys didn't sign up for this package deal. And for them to hold you accountable for their choices is messed up. I hope that the therapist gains control of the sessions, and feel free to tell them that you are being punished at home for what is said in sessions. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for taking my things out of my room because I'm moving and making my foster sister cry? So I, 18 female, am moving out. I've been sharing a room with my foster sister, just 16, for 3 months. Throughout my life, I have had many foster siblings and have been forced to give up my things for them, which I think is where my possessiveness of my belongings comes from. I told my mom I was going to pack my stuff beforehand, and she said sure, but that her and Jess would be out while I do so. I didn't take all the furniture, but I took things like my keyboard, my plants, my books, posters/art, all my clothes, etc. I also took the butcher's block that I had. By the time everything was packed, my side looked a lot more bare, but it wasn't too bad. I also took the cats, which was always the plan between my mom and I. Well, when the pair gets home, Jess looks at the boxes and runs upstairs before sobbing. My mom runs up too and starts ragging on me. Apparently, she didn't think I'd take all my stuff, things like my trinkets and my lamp, and that I took some of Jess's favorite things, like the posters on my wall that I bought with my own money or my graduation candle holders. I apologized to Jess, but say that everything in the boxes is mine, through gifts or my own money. I even offered to buy her some duplicates or similar things, but she said she wants my ones. At this point, I leave because I realize my presence isn't making anything better. My mom texted me later and said it was a prick move not leaving some posters up or a few books. But in my mind, these are my things and I am entitled to them. My relationship with my mom isn't over, but it's strained, and now I'm wondering if I should have just bit the bullet and left some things behind, even though they're mine. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. It's your stuff. You have every right to take it. Exactly. And Opie was even generous enough to offer to buy Jess some stuff of her own. I get that as a foster child, Jess might have abandonment issues, but that doesn't mean that Opie has to give up her things. The real a-hole here is Opie's mom for berating Opie. That's only enabling Jess and making her feel more entitled to Opie's belongings. Opie's mom is failing both girls here. She could have used this as a bonding moment with Jess, to take her out and buy Jess her own books and posters that Jess could keep forever. That was my thought. She took her out so she wouldn't be there while the packing was going on. And if she had realistic expectations, she could have done that then, so Jess could have been excited to redecorate and less focused on the leaving aspect. Not a a-hole. While sharing is important, being forced to share is basically theft. It's not your fault your foster sister likes your things. You like them too. So yes, take all of your stuff and get out of there. Not a a-hole. These are your things and no one is entitled to them but you. Also, your foster sister's mental health isn't your responsibility. It's your mom's. Also, let me point out that you have nothing to feel guilty for. This strain on your relationship is your mother's fault as a consequence of her reaction. Not a a-hole. They were your things. You had no reason to anticipate Jess's reaction or duty to remedy it. My guess is she's sadder about you leaving than your posters, and the boxes and barren room really drove that home. Maybe as a 16-year-old foster child, she has abandonment issues? Her refusal to accept the replacement posters would certainly support this theory. So I don't know if I can call Jess the a-hole. Your mom, however, is definitely the a-hole for blaming you for Jess's reaction and, once again, demanding that you sacrifice your own things for your foster siblings. Next story is titled, Would I be the a-hole for throwing every wrestling match I'm forced to attend? My 15-male school has recently restarted all of the sports programs after almost a year of no limited activity. Before that, I was part of the swim team, one of the smaller groups at our school. I love swimming, and it really sucked that we couldn't go for such a long time. With the restart, the school also made a new system. Every student writes down 3 different after-school activities in order of interest, so number 1 choice is your favorite, 2 your second favorite, and so on. The teachers in charge of the groups then pick the students. First pick is students who already belong to the groups before lockdown. Second pick is then random, and third pick is if there are still places left open in the group. Since I was part of the swim team before and put it down as my first choice, I would basically be guaranteed to get in. But now the results are out and I was placed in wrestling. Never even put that on my list at all. So I went to the teacher and asked what's going on. Turns out the teacher in charge of wrestling specifically requested me for whatever reason. Turns out my dad knows the wrestling teacher quite well and asked for me to be placed on the team. I know my dad hates that I prefer swimming. He always says it's not a real sport, and that I should do some sport that actually gives me muscles. He constantly tells me I'm too skinny for a guy, and has made several attempts to make me go to the gym to work out. I asked the teachers if I can still switch teams, but they say no. I also cannot just avoid a wrestling club because after-school activities are mandatory. So last night, I had a huge fight with my dad. I called him a knave for forcing me to go to wrestling. and that I will just forfeit every single match I have to attend. He threatened me, saying if I do that, he will take away all my electronics, and I will only be allowed to leave the house for school and nothing else. My mom says I should have the right to choose whatever sport I want, but now that I'm on the wrestling team, I should still do my best. And also not to call my dad an A. But I don't want to participate in something I have zero interest in, was even forced into. Also, I was really looking forward to swimming again and meeting my teammates. Now for the comments. Complain to your principal. This backroom deal between your father and the wrestling coach doesn't sound fair to you or anyone else who trusted the voting system. Fight this placement. You deserve swim team, not day hole. I can try to request a talk with the principal. We can't just walk in and talk to him. Have to go first to a teacher, then secretary and so on. But yeah, I will complain to my teachers. This isn't fair. Ask your swim coach among other teachers to speak up for you. Not day hole. That's ridiculous. And also, your dad doesn't think swimming gives you muscles? Less manlier sports like gymnastics and even areas like dancing can be just as good for the body as more conveniently physical sports like football and wrestling, and great for stamina, hand-eye coordination, and straight-up perseverance. Look at Nightwing in the comics. Background is a trapeze artist with an acrobatic movement style, and he is one of the sexiest DC characters for good reason. Not a-hole, but there are plenty of a-holes in your story. Dad, coach, and mom. I forced my kids to do stuff when they were your age, but only after they themselves had asked to join an activity. We had a one-semester rule. If you yourself want to play soccer, you don't get to come and go to practice as you wish because of Xbox or quit mid-season. Also, wrestling isn't just any sport. It is a combat sport that isn't for everyone. To force a young man to wrestle against his will is more bonkers than to force someone to swim. But don't call your dad an A if you want him to listen to your argument. Holy cow, not day-hole. Your father needs to learn something. Swimming is one hell of a workout. It's an Olympic sport for a reason. Sure, you don't get super buff like a bodybuilder, but you do get muscles from that. Swimming takes a lot of energy as well. It's not an easy sport. Also, you should fight this, as it was not your choice to begin with and this was a backroom deal. You stated this was not your choice. If it's not on the paper, why are you there? The teacher asked? No, they stated one of three. Wrestling is not one of your three choices. So they're saying your choice doesn't matter? Or will they honor your choices? Yeah, I will try and talk to my teachers again. Maybe they will let me switch later, because I know a lot of people are asking right now to switch since they didn't get their first choice or so. Yeah, Dad doesn't like cardio workouts and so on. He also wants me to eat more and lift to get bulky like him. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister not to bring her kids over so much? I, 25 female, recently graduated. The city I live in has a shortage of apartments. I could technically afford an available one, but that would mean I would have no extra money for anything but the bare basics. While waiting for a more reasonable place to open up, I have moved in with my parents, who own a house within reasonable commuting distance. My older sister, 32 female, has 3 children. 6 male, 3 female, 1 female. We aren't very close, as her entire identity since her oldest was born is a stay-at-home mom. She usually brings her kids over several times a week to visit, or have my parents babysit while she goes grocery shopping or other errands. I'm not really a kid person, don't plan on having any myself, and I can tolerate hers in small doses. Before, when I lived on campus, this wasn't really an issue. Now, however, I feel like I never get a break from kids. My parents don't allow them in my room, but when they're here, I can't go out and relax in the living room since they're in there. My room is fairly small, and I don't like being cooped up in it all day when they visit. Yesterday, when my sister picked up the kids, they decided to stay for dinner, which meant I had even less time without them. I asked my sister if she would limit their visits to a max of twice a week while I'm here, in order to respect my needs. She got extremely angry at me and accused me of selfishly preventing her kids from seeing their grandparents. Am I the a-hole? Do you ever think your parents are just tolerating you? You're 25. Move out. Entitled is the best word to describe you. You're the a-hole. I was thinking maybe the parents are encouraging the visits to annoy Opie into leaving. Lol, I bet it's this. Opie's clownishly entitled. You're the a-hole. Not your house. And I'm sure your folks love seeing their grandkids. I say this as a child-free woman who understands kids can be way too much. I get the whole child-free thing, but it really bums me out when people act like this towards their own nieces and nephews. No one is asking you to adore being with children all the time, but the disrespect these children have to endure from people who have no reason not to love them is incomprehensible to me. Yet another child-free woman here to support this post. I'm also an only child, so this situation would never happen, but I can't imagine ever having the nerve. Opie, you're the a-hole. You're the a-hole for a lot of reasons. Her entire identity since her oldest was born is stay-at-home mom. What else is it supposed to be? She's a mother with 3 kids. Give her a break. My parents don't allow them in my room. That is your needs being met, by the way. Anything past this makes you the a-hole. You want to relax in your home? Go get one. But your parents deserve to be grandparents if they want to be, and you don't get to take that away from them or your sister. But it's all about me, me, me. I hate all little kids except me, me, me. You're the a-hole. It's not your house, and nobody asked you to babysit. The entitlement coming off Opie is absolutely insane.
Am I the a-hole for refusing to have anything to do with my mother after she abandoned me for 10 years, then came back and spitefully said my dad wasn't my dad after letting him raise me solo? My 20-year-old parents were young when they dated and my mother got pregnant with me. They broke up during the pregnancy and my mother called my dad to the hospital. She left me with him and said she wasn't interested in parenting, and since he was, he could do it. She did nothing for me for the next 10 years. There was no contact, no child support, and yes, my dad pursued it. Nothing. My dad did it all. He was on his own and committed to raising me. There were times I asked him about my mother, and he tried to stay neutral with a slightly positive leaning on her, just because he didn't want me to hate myself for being half her. He wanted to nurture confidence and security in me. And as much as I hate her today, I appreciate him doing it, because I was sort of fragile as a kid emotionally, and I think the insecurity and self-loathing would have been bad if I had known just how awful she was. A few weeks after I turned 10, my mother showed up and acted like she could just start playing supermom. She told Dad she wanted to take me and raise me now, and didn't want to fight over it. She told me I was going to move in with her, but I fought back and said I wanted to stay with Dad and that she was a stranger. Then when she wasn't getting her way, she told us Dad wasn't my real dad anyway, and I was someone else's bio kid, so I didn't belong with him. She said it out of pure spite, but also because she thought Dad would dump me on the spot. Until we got the DNA test, I was in pieces over that. I felt guilty because Dad raised me not knowing, and I didn't want to have a different dad or lose him. He spent ages reassuring me he would be my dad no matter what, that I was his son no matter what, and that he loved me. But I was terrified someone would come between us. I was sure my mother would find the actual guy and he'd take me away, or they both would. But the DNA test proved I was Dad's kid. He paid for it privately because he wanted me to be comforted, and deep down he believed I was his, even though he was sick at the thought that my mother might be telling the truth. We don't know if she had doubts about who my father was, but she was wrong. Dad was 100% my dad. She disappeared again after the DNA results. She was pissed. She acted like I was supposed to jump into her arms and run away with her, even though she was a stranger, and even the way she talked to me showed she would have been a crappy mother. It was only 2.5 months ago that she showed up again. She moved to town with her husband and his 2 little kids. They stopped by mine and Dad's house to introduce themselves. They said his kid's mom had died, and my mother was going to be their mom now, and that we'd be siblings and should be a family. I told them I wanted nothing to do with her or any of them. I told her that after what she did, she had the audacity to come back and act like I'd ever want anything to do with her. She argued that it was 10 years ago and she's grown. I said she could F off and die in a hole, because she was a spiteful bitch and unworthy of being called a mom. Dad told them they needed to leave. Her husband was willing to go because he didn't like our attitude, but she acted offended and lingered. She's approached me a few times since, and I've ignored her completely. She told me I should hear her out and give her a chance. Her husband was there one of those times and he said crap about me, calling me a monster for the F off and die in a whole comment because I supposedly want his kids to lose 2 mothers and be motherless twice before they're 5. I ignored them, but the comments still bother me a little. I want to scream that they should move away if they don't like it, but I know I can't make them leave. And I know I haven't heard her side. I don't want to. I don't want a relationship or anything to do with her ever. But does that make me the a-hole? And you know, I'm the same age my parents were when I was born. I feel too young for kids, but I would never screw my kid over the way she did me. She was 30 when she did that. Like WTF. She wasn't a kid anymore. And she didn't give a crap about what it did to me. She didn't care about what it did to Dad, even though he was on his own with me and had zero support from her. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Protect your peace. There's nothing she could say that would justify her abandonment. The abandonment isn't her worst crime anymore. She outdid that when she tried turning my world upside down when I was 10. Blood makes relatives, but actions make a family, and her actions suck. Not only did she abandon you, she then throws the zinger that he's not your real dad to a 10-year-old. How cruel, not the a-hole. I know. If she can be that cruel to a 10-year-old, how cruel would she be now that I'm an adult? How cruel would be to my eventual future kids? Her worst action was no longer abandoning me after the paternity nonsense she threw at us. Not the a-hole. Next time she tries to talk to you, just completely blank her and walk away. She does not deserve any of your time. That's what I'm already doing. I don't look at or acknowledge her. I keep walking, and I don't slow down until I can no longer hear her. There was a time I even turned around and went back the way I came, just to get away from her easier. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to attend therapy sessions with my sister, who is doing an inpatient psych stay? This is really bothering me. My home life's more toxic than before now. So I, 16 male, need advice and an honest answer on whether I'm the a-hole. I have one sister, 17 female, who was always a problem kid. When we were little, she was violent without remorse. She didn't discriminate against any one person in particular. You just had to be close enough for her to hurt you in some way. I was a frequent target, and so was a kid in her class who was always seated next to her by teachers. She got into trouble at school for it all the time, and CPS got involved twice before she was 10. I remember being interviewed by someone from CPS and showing them the bruises, cuts, and other injuries I still had. My parents were ordered to get her evaluated and sent to therapy. The second time, a whole new evaluation was ordered, but I don't think she ever got a diagnosis back then. They tried, sure, but I don't ever remember hearing them talk about an actual diagnosis. But I could have been kept out of it too. They were also told to get me a lock for my door and to never leave us alone. At that point, I was allowed to stay at friends' houses more, and I sometimes spent several overnights at my best friend's house for my safety and because they were willing to give me a real break from her. My sister got expelled from school twice, once in 2018 and again in 2021. After she was expelled the second time, she hurt me really badly. I was in the hospital for a few days getting scans on my head because of her, and she went for her first inpatient stay. She got home a week after I did, and because my parents hadn't gotten her into a new school yet, I was forced to be around her 24/7 until I was considered safe to go back to school. In that time, while we were both home from school, she tried to choke me out and tried to hurt my head again. Her behavior got even worse, and she was running away, getting arrested, and all kinds of things. I spent an entire month living with my best friend's family because of stuff at home and my sister's threats to unalive me. Then in April this year, she was sent on an inpatient psych stay for an extended period. I forget how my parents were able to pull it, but I think CPS and some charity got her in under some financial aid so they could keep her there longer. They couldn't afford it with insurance otherwise. Because of this, she finally got diagnosed and a few things were mentioned, but antisocial personality disorder was one my parents talked about. In July, her therapist started to recommend therapy sessions with each of us. My parents went, but I refused. I told them I didn't want therapy with her and I don't care about a relationship with her or helping her recover. I said I care more about not being assaulted anymore. They said therapy would help with that and is the only way for her to recover enough to stop. But I know that even though she apologizes in sessions, she also abuses our parents verbally in them and says really awful things. She told them she hates them for having me because she wishes she were an only child. She has even told them how she has wanted to unalive me for years and basically dissect me like a frog in school. I don't want to sit there and listen to her say that stuff. My parents didn't want to tell me about it either, but I can see in their faces how disturbed they are every time they get home from a session. My parents are now totally mad at me for refusing to go to the therapy sessions, and they try so hard to change my mind. They even try putting my sister's success or failure onto me, and they say I should be evaluated for saying I don't care about her getting better. They said I'm supposed to be understanding because she's sick, and she's getting the help to be better. But I don't think she wants to be if she's saying stuff like that. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. You're prioritizing your own safety and mental health, which is completely reasonable. You aren't responsible for fixing or tolerating your sister's abuse, and therapy shouldn't come at the cost of your well-being. I don't think my well-being is cared about as much as hers. Can your friend's parents contact CPS and maybe try to organize being a permanent guardian for you? It is actually insane that you keep being put back in a house with her after all of her attempts to kill you. I get your parents are clearly at their limit trying to deal with her, but they are completely and utterly failing you consistently and putting you in countless dangerous situations. This is so extremely serious, and you need to be protected. I don't know. I can ask them, but it might be an issue that they're not related to me. But I'd be way safer there, and people would actually care about my safety, and not just my sister. I'm surprised that the therapist has seen how she is with your parents and is requesting that you have therapy with her. This makes it seem like the therapist is a freaking moron. I understand a therapist's goal is to help their patient, but I would think they would also consider the effect on other people. Or maybe it's your parents who are requesting it? It could be just them. I don't speak to any of the people where my sister is, so my parents could be lying. And it wouldn't be unlike them, honestly. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister-in-law that breastfeeding is not about her journey, but about her starving baby? So I've published the first part of this story before on breastfeeding and mommy subreddits, and I've been made to feel like a monster because mother knows best. For the record, we are in Europe. I'm sorry for my English, and also I'm extremely emotional. My sister-in-law Julia gave birth to little Amanda 11 weeks ago. From the beginning, Amanda was barely growing, mostly losing weight instead of gaining. My country is heavily pro-breastfeeding, and Julia decided that she wanted to breastfeed. However, Amanda wasn't gaining weight properly and landed in the 0.1 percentile for weight. Julia forbade me and my mom from coming to visit them. She said we would poison her if we brought her food. It was surprising, especially since before she gave birth, we were good friends. So we only saw little Amanda in pictures and videos my brother had been sending to us. Only once my mom said she was worried because Amanda looked hungry. She was crying and writhing, pushing her fists into her mouth, while Julia narrated in the video that this is how a happy baby looks with a full belly. So my mom asked if Julia could give her a bottle because Amanda still seemed hungry. Julia went berserk and cut us off completely. She was pumping, but her supply didn't go up at all. Amanda had a tongue tie resolved, but it didn't help much. Julia was using donor milk to top up Amanda's feeds through a sonde. I don't know what this thing is called. Now, every week they've been visiting a doctor's office for a controlled checkup of the weight. This is where it gets really messy. They were there yesterday, and yesterday, my brother called us crying that Amanda is in the hospital. The story went like this. As always, Julia asked my brother to bring her coffee before the weighing appointment while she was using the nursing room to change Amanda's nappy. As always, he did. Except this time, a nurse went in during it to ask Julia about some paperwork. and the nurse saw that Julia was feeding Amanda from a bottle right before the checkup. The bottle had 150 cc of milk, and it was already half gone. The nurse said that Julia was supposed to wait with feeding until after the checkup, and then my brother came in. He got very mad. He said that Julia refused to give Amanda bottles, so what the heck was going on? Then he took the bottle, and at the same time, Amanda vomited a very, very thick milk. The nurse went crazy, checked the bottle, and saw it was filled with milk mixed with rice cereal. The doctor who was called immediately ordered Amanda to be moved to the hospital for an emergency checkup, especially after seeing Julia, who went berserk and started throwing things around and yelling that she would feed her baby however and whenever she wanted. We went to the hospital to see my brother. Amanda already had her blood tests done, and they showed some problems with kidneys, liver, vitamin levels, and iron. The doctor said she had been starving for a long time and asked why nobody from our family reacted. We told them the story about Julia claiming that we would poison her. So the doctors immediately took Julia for a psych evaluation for PPD, but turns out she was faking it. She admitted to the doctor, super scared that someone might take the baby from her, that her friend told her if she faked PPD, we would leave her alone and she'd have peace of mind during breastfeeding. The doctors told her that what she did was not okay, and that she was regularly stuffing the baby with milk and cereal before the weight checkups to pretend Amanda had grown. They told her she should just give Amanda bottles with formula because this is about the little girl's life and survival, as she is now failure to thrive, and her life and health are in danger. Julia got very mad. She yelled that she would either breastfeed Amanda or not feed her at all, and that the choice was only hers because this is her baby and nobody else's. That's when the doctors told Julia that either she would go for another psych evaluation or they would call the police. Julia agreed to the evaluation and they locked her in for a week. My brother is working 14 hours per day because they are poor, and after their wedding, Julia decided she wanted to be a traditional wife and he has to earn their living. So my brother said that whatever Julia was doing must be right. But after seeing what was happening, he got super mad. He said she starved Amanda on purpose for her own sick satisfaction, even though he was working hard to provide money so they could buy formula if needed. He said he wanted a divorce and full custody of Amanda. We don't know if he will get it, because it's rare for dads to take custody of daughters. Also, the doctors are mad at him for not noticing what Julia was doing. Before Julia went to the ward, I got angry and told her that she made monsters out of us and that we were just worried about her and Amanda, and that this whole situation was always only about Julia and her breastfeeding journey and not about Amanda's life. She called me a bitch and said I should have died in childhood because nobody can love an autistic person like me. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. Julia is very mentally ill and was willing to end her baby to maintain some weird illusion. The doctors say she may have schizophrenia or some kind of psychosis or very dangerous mania. But if after the evaluation they find out nothing, she probably won't get Amanda back. Not the a-hole, obviously. Regardless of what Julia's diagnosis is, she is not safe to parent poor little Amanda. Obviously, the infant's needs come first, regardless of what journey a parent wants to make. Based on my work with abused and neglected children, the idea that mommy knows best is sadly very wrong in many cases, and fatally so in some. This is heartbreaking to read. Your niece's health should always come before your sister-in-law's pride or desire to exclusively breastfeed. It sounds like the doctors are finally stepping in, which is good, but your brother really needs to wake up and advocate for Amanda before things get worse. He admits he made a lot of mistakes. He said he always trusted Julia and wanted the best for her and Amanda. He says he hates himself for what happened. My mom said we'll help him financially as much as we can. I also hope Julia will be okay. I really liked her before everything that happened, and she was always kind to me and was never bothered that I'm autistic. But mostly I pray for Amanda.